The Hamas-run health ministry says more than 38,100 people have been killed during the war in Gaza. This as the conflict sparked by Hamas-led terror attacks in October enters its 10th month. New diplomatic efforts are once again raising hopes of a truce as the violence continues, though the ministry said Saturday that at least 16 people were killed by an Israeli strike on a UN-run school in the central refugee camp of Nuseirat.
Screams and smoke filled the air moments after Israel's attack. Survivors scrambled to search through the wreckage at the school in Nuseirat. Around 7,000 people were estimated to be sheltering in the area.
We ran to the targeted area. We saw bodies of children in pieces. This is a playground. There was a trampoline here, swing sets and vendors. Civilians were killed. This is a United Nations school. It's supposed to be safe and should not be targeted. Every strike we find bodies blown to pieces. I swear to God, I took out children with my own hands.
The wounded were rushed to hospital. But with health services on the brink of collapse, children were treated in busy corridors. Israel's military said it had been targeting terrorists in the attack. Hamas denied its fighters were there. Meanwhile, in Tel Aviv, thousands of protesters once again demanded Israel's government accept a deal to bring back hostages and reach a ceasefire. Hamas has reportedly softened its position on a draft agreement, potentially opening negotiations after weeks of deadlock.
For the first time in many months, we feel there is a spark of hope. For the first time, we all feel that we are closer than ever to getting our loved ones back. This is an opportunity that cannot be missed.
Our message to the government is very simple. There is a deal on the table. Take it.
There hasn't been a pause in fighting in Gaza since a one-week truce in November. Officials involved in ceasefire negotiations say real progress has been made in recent days, but warn there's still lots of work ahead in reaching a binding agreement.
DW Senior International Correspondent Fanny Facsar joins us now from Jerusalem. What is Israel saying about this deadly Gaza strike on that UN-run school?
Well, Israel claims that that area around that school was allegedly used by Hamas militants to carry out their attacks, while Hamas militants again claim that allegedly their soldiers were not even nearby. Claims and counterclaims, very similar ones we have heard during the past 9 months as the war in Gaza has entered its 10 months today. And the question really is, for the people on the ground, for the hundreds of thousands of Palestinians who have been displaced again and again, what's next? Is there a way out from this? Just for this particular airstrike there on that school, we're hearing from the Palestinian Health Ministry that at least 16 people have been killed. Many others have been reportedly injured. But where do these people go who have been injured? There are no operating or only very rudimentally, very partially operating hospitals at this point in Gaza. In fact, people, the thousands who've been seeking shelter in their particular school, these are people who have been displaced over and over again, and some of them probably have considered themselves even lucky to be inside the building, as so many of the Palestinians right now are trying to somehow survive in tents, if they even have a tent, or look for a place where they can sleep outside. So that situation on the ground is growing disastrous by the day, while once again people are asking, is there an end to these hostilities at all, and when?
And speaking of a way out of this, about those ongoing ceasefire negotiations, any reason to be optimistic?
There's definitely some cautious optimism, I would say. The very fact that the diplomatic efforts have been revived during the past week, and the very fact that obviously nobody expects Hamas militants and Israeli officials to be sitting at one table, but the fact that Qatar, that's playing really a key role here in trying to mediate between these parties to make sure that that US proposed ceasefire plan is being put in action, is leading to some cautious optimism. I would like to remind the viewers with regard to that ceasefire proposal by the US that's been put forward in May, that it entails not only an end to hostilities and the release of hostages, allegedly about 120 hostages are still believed to be in Gaza, but also the withdrawal of Israeli troops and ultimately the rebuilding of Gaza. That's a long road ahead, and at this point, the phase that currently both Israel and Gaza are in, and the parties that are trying to negotiate with each other, is the question just how to move forward with regard to any framework to a truce. And what we are hearing right now, that Hamas militants apparently have dropped one of their key demands, and that was so far that they wanted to have a commitment by Israel to a permanent ceasefire before any agreement is being signed. Now that demand has been dropped, and now the ball is really in the court of Israel, how they're going to respond to that. How are they going to respond to Hamas saying that they're ready to negotiate with regard to the release of Israeli hostages?
Any sense of how Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is looking at the deal?
It's really difficult to look into the political mind, to say so, of Prime Minister Netanyahu. I think it's worth to mention that so far during the past 9 months, as the Gaza war is entering the 10 months today, there was only 1 week of truce, and that was end of November last year, that ended on December 1st. And Prime Minister Netanyahu has been very poised to repeat over and over again that he wants to eliminate Hamas militants, and even though the intense fighting may be over at some point soon, he wants to eliminate even the remnants of that militant group. And with that in mind, obviously, a lot is at stake when it comes to negotiations and also the question of trust. So even if there's an agreement, can these parties actually trust each other that have been fighting each other, not only since October 7th, but years and years before that, that agreement then is going to be implemented? Certainly what's happening here in Israel and across the country is an increasing pressure when it comes to Prime Minister Netanyahu and his government, that he's not doing enough, people say, with regard to trying to release and secure the release of hostages. Thousands of people have been taking to the streets yesterday and are also taking the street today. They're demanding a release of the hostages, but also they want to have someone else leading the war in Gaza. They do not trust that Prime Minister Netanyahu and his government are the right ones in place.
Fanny Facsar in Jerusalem, thank you so much.